Hi, I'm Jocelyn Atkins, Executive Director of the Teton Regional Land Trust, and I am here today with Michael Whitfield, who was the founding director of the Teton Regional Land Trust back 30 years ago, served in that position for 18 years, continued to work in the landscape as the director of the Heart of the Rockies initiative, and has maintained your support of our work over the last 30 years. So really excited to be here with you today to have a conversation about the last 30 years. And I just want to, in case I forget later, to thank you for everything that you've done to protect this great place, Teton Valley and Eastern Idaho. You have been one of the leaders in making conservation happen. So this is just a real honor to be here today.
Well, thank you. Honored myself.
So Michael, you were lucky enough to be born and raised in Teton Valley. Will you share a couple of fond memories of growing up here?
Well, I grew up in an amazing time in Teton Valley. The late 50s, early the 60s. When I was a real young kid, we'd retreat to Three Creeks, Teton Creek up by the cemetery and above that. And we were gone sunrise to sunset, having all kinds of adventures that our parents didn't know about. Eventually we broadened our horizons and fell in love with the mountains, and we had a biology teacher when I was in high school named Fred Miller. He taught us as young kids all the way up, a scoutmaster and the like. We went camping in Darby. When I was 12, we did our first winter camping, and just a great time to be roaming the hills around here when there weren't many people and we could go anywhere. Loved being on the river. Both of my granddads were great fishermen, and down there matching the hatch and catching fish and just having a great time.
Yeah, back in the late 80s, you and some other people came together and started talking about founding a land trust. What inspired those early conversations, and who was at the table?
Well, it was an interesting time. Teton Valley back then was really divided over growth issues, believe it or not. And it was a time when we were starting to see quite a lot of growth. And it was coincidental, Lauren Wilson and I, a farmer from Alta, attended a gathering in Jackson Hole, and there was some talk there about land trusts, and we'd never heard of land trusts. And it seemed like a way to bring people together. That was the original idea, was maybe here's a concept we could all get behind. We could protect the place we all love through incentives, through voluntary agreements with folks, and do something that we could all support. So that was the beginning. And then we went on for over a year back here in the valley trying to convince folks that maybe this was something we could do. We had met a big tall cowboy named Jake Kittle in Jackson at that gathering, and he was associated with the Trust for Public Land. And so they brought people out to give a couple talks here. We didn't generate much interest. We were surprised, such a great idea, and nobody was buying in. But over time, we started to form a group, and I wanted to list those names.
Yeah.
We had a group of people that we called our land trust committee that was investigating the idea, and that was Steve Smart, Boyd Bowles, Lynn Bagley, Julia Hibbert, Ned Hibbert, Jake Kittle, the cowboy from Jackson, Albert Tilt, myself, Lauren Wilson, Don Thompson, Jean Marie Callahan, and Mary May. And we put together a slideshow. We went around talking to folks in the valley, to community groups and the like, trying to get this thing formed. We eventually formed a board in early 1990, and pretty quickly it was evident that board wasn't going to work because it was mostly tree huggers. And we had a little meeting in Little Mac's Cafe, and it's, I think, well chronicled in the land trust history.
Yeah.
At the table was Albert Tilt, Ned Twining, Steve Smart, and myself. And they were kind of counseling me, we need to broaden this, we need to get some business people on, we need to make this happen. And so we disbanded our board with everyone's consent, and in May of 1990 we formed a new board, 6 members. I was elected board chair, and Ned Twining the board secretary. There was Steve Smart, as well as Albert, Ned, myself, Ed Hill, and Don Betts, veterinarian. And from there we expanded the board, and the rest is history.
So, when you guys were sitting around the table and dreaming what the Land Trust could be, what were your hopes for the organization, and what kind of impact did you think that Teton Regional Land Trust could make?
Well, in those first years we were Teton Valley Land Trust. We were just focused on this one county. And in January of 1991, after our founding, we had our first retreat with the board, and we did strategic planning, and part of that was what is our big vision? And at that point the big vision was, maybe in 20 years we could have protected 10,000 acres along the Teton River and wetlands. That was our big dream. And
Done.
And then in that time, there were no other local land trusts in the whole state of Idaho. So recognize context.
Right.
And so we were talking with folks. I had a lot of friends because of my work on the South Fork of the Snake. We were talking with folks there. Maybe they should start something like this. Talking with folks in Fremont County. That led to some big changes that came years later when we became regional.
So looking across the service area of the Land Trust, which of course includes Teton Valley and the Teton River, but also the South Fork of the Snake and the River Canyon, as well as the Henry's Fork, thinking about that broad landscape, what strikes you most about the impact of the Land Trust on this region?
Well, you speak about three landscapes that we've always recognized as being pretty special, but science has told us in the last number of years just what levels of uniqueness those landscapes bear. Back when they were studying megasites, if you will, the big areas all around Greater Yellowstone, Teton Valley came out as the number one priority, combined vulnerability to loss and irreplaceability of resources. The Henry's Fork was number one in terms of irreplaceable natural resources. And the South Fork of the Snake has long been recognized as the number one wildlife habitat in the whole state of Idaho. So that's incredible to think of what we have here within that area. And then to think of the work that's been done to protect those treasures. That's pretty remarkable. Again, landscapes protected, not just postage stamps, but landscapes that allow critters to move around and really make the most of those unique environments.
So as we think about the next 30 years and, within the context of knowing that the West is developing really rapidly and a lot of people want to move to eastern Idaho, what concerns you the most about the impact that that's going to have on the landscape and the wildlife and the quality of life?
Well, obviously in all of our areas we need good land use planning and good thinking in terms of our local governments and the like to protect our assets, but that doesn't cover all the bases, and we need these incentive-driven voluntary measures that the Land Trust promotes to protect key places. I'm concerned that we're going to lose the connectivity in the landscape for a lot of wildlife, and that's true on different scales for just about all of our wildlife. They need the ability to move around into different habitats seasonally or whatever it is, and so that they can meet their needs and have that freedom to move. And it's difficult to maintain that at a landscape scale given where we're going. The other thing I'm concerned about is our agriculture, and ranching and farming have been integral to our local economy. They're a big part of what makes this place what it is. A lot of great people engaged in those enterprises, and I'm concerned about loss of the critical mass of what it takes to make agriculture keep working, so that we feed our people and grow food locally that's great for our social well-being.
More food, less houses. For me, I moved back to Idaho in 2008 and was working as the executive director of a small land trust based in Pocatello, Idaho. And one of my first days on the job was a Heart of the Rockies meeting. And it was 2008. You had started as the director of Heart of the Rockies, an organization that is a partnership of land trusts across all of the northern Rockies, from the Greater Yellowstone up into the dark woods of Canada. And that first meeting, I remember meeting you and feeling just really sort of out of my element, trying to figure out how to do conservation in eastern Idaho, how to start a land trust, what were going to be the steps, who was going to help me, and you were there every step of the way in that early time, and I knew at the time that you had worked here and founded this organization, and it's kind of beyond my wildest dreams that I'm sitting here now as the executive director and getting to have this conversation with you, because the vision that you had, the commitment you've had to this landscape, and the work that the organization has accomplished really has so much to do with your passion and commitment and just steadfast determination to make a difference in this incredible place. So thank you, Michael, and
Thank
thanks
you.
for taking the time.
Thank you.